This is a Red FM Vancouver podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe for more great content. For further info, log on to redfm.ca.
ਸਾਡੇ ਚੀਫ ਹੈਲਥ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਨੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਦੇ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬੌਨੀ ਹੈਨਰੀ ਜੀ। ਉਹ ਅੱਜ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਈ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ, ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਤੇ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਅਤੇ ਸਕੂਲ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਨੇ। ਕਈ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਨੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਚੀਫ ਹੈਲਥ ਆਫਿਸਰ ਨੇ। ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਉਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਨ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਬੌਨੀ ਹੈਨਰੀ, ਵੈਲਕਮ।
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. And I really appreciate your time. The whole world actually recognizes you that you are able to flatten the curve before anyone else in the world while keeping your cool too. So how did you manage that?
Well, I think, the credit goes to everybody in British Columbia, and we've been working together on this, and that is something that's incredibly important. And I will say, now that we're starting to see more cases again, as we're starting to open up, we need to pay attention once more to making sure that we're all doing our part.
Yeah, that you managed to flatten it. Now the fluctuation is kind of scary. Yesterday the numbers were quite a bit, 85 cases. So what is your vision down 6 months?
Yeah, yesterday we had large numbers of cases, but part of it is what I look at with my colleagues in public health is, do we know where these people are being exposed? And for most of them, we absolutely do. And that's why we've encouraged people who've been at these, a lot of them are younger people who've been at a number of events and parties. And so we have been out there telling them to get tested if they have any symptoms. And that's where we're seeing the majority of cases. We've also seen people traveling and coming in. And so for the next 6 months, we are going to see people having COVID. We're going to see it spreading in our community, and we all need to really pay attention to keeping that low and slow and making sure that we can follow up on everybody, that we can catch people who've been exposed and make sure that if they get sick, they're not passing it on to anybody else. And that's what we're going to be focusing on for the next 6 months.
Dr. Henry, you've been very kind and patient. I understand you don't want to be heavy-handed and order or implement these protocols. But now, some people are careless. Some people don't care what you say. They're having big parties, and this group is out of control. Don't you think you should enforce some orders now?
Well, we do have a few orders that are very specific, and people are mostly doing the right thing. This is where we all need to get together and recognize that we can influence our peers, our communities, our families. And I'm calling on everybody to step up now and remind each other that this is what we do to keep our own families safe and our own communities safe. And so having these big parties right now, we need to stop that. We need to make sure that we're doing things in a safe way for all of us.
And the Provincial Health Office of Alberta, Dr. Dina Henshaw, she has recommended that teachers, students, and the staff must be tested before school starts. Are you considering similar steps?
Yeah, so I know it's voluntary in Alberta. It's not something that we've considered. Testing has really, it has a place, a very important place, but it's for people who have symptoms, and broad testing of people who haven't been exposed, who don't have symptoms. I don't know that there's a place for that I see. Mm-hmm. What's more important is for us to really understand where people are being exposed, making sure that we stop having those big gatherings so that we can be safe in our communities and make sure that our schools are safe too.
When we are looking at the school reopening guidelines in other provinces and BC, why are these learning cohorts are so big? Do you think this number 60, I think the number is, it's appropriate?
Yeah, so I think people, it's been a challenge to try and explain what we mean by a learning cohort, and it really is the one of the layers that we have to protect everybody in the school setting. And what it means is the maximum number of people that you'll be exposed to in your school over the course of the semester or the whole year will be a smaller number than is in the school. So it'll be much less than 60 for many schools, but for larger schools, so if there's 300 students in the school, what we're saying is we're breaking it into smaller groups that will do things at the same time, because you can't have things like staggered starts or staggered recesses or lunch times, with every single class being at a different time, because then it just wouldn't make sense. So this is a way of saying, okay, maybe these 2 or 3 classes will have their recess at this time. It doesn't mean that they'll all be mixing and mingling together. It means they may be out in different areas of the playground at the same time. But it's a way of staggering scheduling so that you can make sure that you can have certain classes and that people can do things in a way that they're not crowding all the hallways at the same time, and that we're reducing the numbers of potential contacts that you have. The other really important thing is this is not like your home bubble where everybody in that group you're going to be hugging and having that close contact. We still need to have our physical distancing. It may be slightly less in some classrooms because we know it may be between 1 and 2 meters depending on how we do it. We know that masks will play a role in some places as well in some situations. So it's one of the layers, and it's not that we're expecting people to have daily contact with 60 people. That's not it at all. It's much more around limiting and making sure that we can schedule things so that reduce the number of people that you're in contact with.
Dr. Henry, you've been asked a million times about these masks, but now in the light of recent development here, 85 cases, do you think that the mandatory masks should be implemented, and what harm it can have?
Yeah, so we, I don't believe that mandating mask wearing is what we need. What we need is for all of us to pay attention to those situations where a mask may be of benefit, and those are those short times when we may not be able to keep our physical distancing. Masks are one of the tools that we have, and we've never mandated those things. We've never mandated that you have to stay 6 feet apart from people. Mm-hmm. We know that people know that these are the layers of protection that we all have together. So that's how we're approaching mask wearing as well. It's one of those things that we do. It doesn't take the place of other things, and it's certainly something that I do when I go to, I have a small grocery store in my community that I go to. I wear my mask. I wear it when I'm on public transit. Those are the places where we can't always keep that safe distance. Mm-hmm. So we'll be focusing on that. And the other thing we're focusing on is we know where where most of the transmission is happening. And it's happening in places where people aren't wearing masks, like at parties and clubs and restaurants. So mandating masks is not going to solve that situation. We need to make sure that we're taking the right measures for the right circumstances that we're seeing.
Well, Dr. Henry, if you know that it's the bars and clubs and those restaurants, because the West Vancouver, one of the councillors is also saying, shut them down.
And what we have done is put in very strict protocols in the bars and restaurants, and those are working. But what we need people is to pay attention. We know that we've heard examples of people wanting to come in with a group of 20 and party in a place or a restaurant. And, that's not safe. And that's where we need to get people to recognize that again. We're also hearing, and this is something that's concerning to me, we're hearing that places like banquet halls are having events with large numbers of people. Mm-hmm. And that is not allowed under the public health orders that we have. So those are the types of situations that we all need to pay attention to, and we'll be looking at our public health officers and working with the bylaw officers and doing inspections on these. And if we're seeing these, those will be shut down. Absolutely.
Dr. Henry, this morning we had an open line. A lot of parents were talking, and some parents are not comfortable sending their kids to school. Would you recommend BC to have a provision for them to have a virtual learning?
Well, I know there are options for parents, and some of those options are distance learning or virtual learning. Some of them are homeschooling, which works for some children. But the most important thing for us is we know that children need that interaction, and schools are a safe place where they can grow, where they can learn, where they can have those social interactions that are so important for young people. And we all need to do our bit. The things that we know about schools is that they reflect what's going on in our communities. So if we have a lot of COVID transmission in the community, it makes our schools more at risk. We have done really well here so far, protecting ourselves, protecting each other, keeping our numbers low, keeping our rates low. Even the numbers that we're seeing in the last little while, still relatively low. And public health has been working diligently to make sure that we know where everybody is. So that's what we need to keep going. We need to keep our schools going. They're so important environments for our young people. So we need to find that balance of making sure we can support kids despite having a pandemic that we're all working through.
Doctor, what would you like to say in closing today?
You know what? I think people in BC are doing the right thing. We need to just focus. We need to know that we have to live with this virus for a while, and we all need to do our bit, and we know what we need to do. So I hope everybody who's listening is thinking the same thing, that we can do this together.
Dr. Henry, thank you very much, and please accept my sincere thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Speak to you again.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another Red FM podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe and check out our Red FM Canada YouTube channel. For further info, log on to our Red FM social media platforms or visit redfm.ca.